Hey everybody, Norm here. This week's episode of Still Untitled is brought to you by Blue Apron. We've talked about this service before. It brings you fresh ingredients and recipes so that you can make meals in your own home. For less than $10 a meal, Blue Aprons delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meal. The pre-portioned part, that's my favorite. Blue Apron knows that when you cook with incredible ingredients, you make incredible meals. So they set the highest quality standards for their community of artisanal suppliers, family-run farms, fisheries, and ranchers. Whether it's Japanese noodles, wild-caught Alaskan salmon, or heirloom tomatoes, Blue Apron is bringing you the best. And for listeners of this podcast, you can check out this week's menu, and you can get your first 3 meals. That's 3 meals for free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/untitled. Again, that's blueapron.com/untitled. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. And now on with the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Adam.
I'm Norm.
And I'm Rebecca.
Rebecca Watson, welcome.
Rebecca's back with us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry that it has been so long. It's dumb, and there's no reason it's been so long except of inertia and time flies.
That's all right. Let's, bygones. Let's just move forward with our awesomeness together.
How have things been?
Super. Are we asking me or him?
Both.
Let's ask you, how have things been in the last couple months?
Things have been fantastic. I just got back from Minneapolis, where we do Skepticon every year. This is our last one.
That's your last one?
Last one.
I was just going to ask, how do I get invited to Skepticon?
Well, we talked about this ages ago, and I mentioned that it's always 4th of July weekend.
That's always a
and you
tough
said,
one.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
But the good news is that, so we're leaving we were part of a larger con. We ran the science track, and it was focused on mostly women in science, but we allowed men on occasionally. And as part of a larger conference, we didn't have any control over when it was. And so we are done with that. And now we're looking into the possibility of maybe branching off on our own.
Nice.
So, yeah, I'll let you guys
And maybe it
know.
won't even be in Minneapolis.
It probably won't be.
And Minneapolis is a great city.
I love
been.
Minneapolis, but it costs the same amount to fly there as it would for me to fly to Nicaragua on a surf vacation.
Do you know one time, have I told the story? So one time Jamie and I had an appearance in Fresno. I'm not going to make this a Shaggy Dog story, even though I could. And it costs a fortune to fly to Fresno because the short California hops are super expensive. It was going to cost $1,900 for 2 round trip tickets from San Francisco to Fresno and back. Not only that, we could only leave 1 time per day, so we'd still lose a half day of shooting as opposed to driving 3.5 hours. So I chartered a helicopter, which cost a total of $1,800.
That's awesome.
And the helicopter pilot came to our college appearance with us and then drove back to the airport. We were home and in bed by 10:30 at night.
That's amazing.
One of the most rock star moments I've ever had.
How long was the flight?
45 minutes.
45 minutes by helicopter.
From here to Fresno.
That's so
boom.
cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and there was an extra seat. So 3 people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like less than $2,000. That's a totally reasonable way
Oh my
to get
God,
to
do you guys want to go to
Fresno.
Fresno right now?
Yeah.
Turn off the cameras. We're going to Fresno. That's awesome.
It was.
That's
It
the
was-
most baller way to get to Fresno.
It's literally the only distance and maybe state at which that distance and
That
cost
math works.
out.
Mhm,
Right.
mhm.
Yeah.
That's super.
How
So-
did we get on that?
I don't know. So Rebecca's been doing convention circuit
Convention.
traveling.
Oh, right. The cost of flying to
Yep.
Minneapolis. So do you think it might not be July 4th weekend next year?
I am positive it won't be July 4th. Because I need to see the July 4th parade. I need to see the fireworks. I don't need to be at a conference.
My dogs. Did we talk about my dogs on
No.
July 4th?
Aw.
Huxley. Maggie doesn't really care, but Huxley sits there because we're in the Mission.
Yeah.
It's a noisy location. People across the courtyard from me were like sitting on the roof firing Roman candles.
Yep.
Do they make little earmuffs for dogs?
No, I used some of Danica's melatonin on
Oh.
Huxley, which turned out to calm him down.
Okay,
it's
that's
totally
good.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
it's not coffee.
What's that?
It's not coffee. Coffee kills dogs.
Really?
No. Yeah, there's lots of things that kill dogs.
Yeah.
Maggie ate a pound of chocolate this Christmas.
That's not good.
Someone gave us chocolate gift wrapped. So we put it under the tree. And of course, we came
Right.
home to Maggie
Oh no.
having eaten a pound of C's, a whole layer of the. She even, like, we found she had not only eaten a pound, but she'd managed to hide 5 pieces in 3 couches.
Oh.
For later.
Was
for
she
later.
okay?
Yeah.
She was fine. We had her stomach pumped.
Yeah.
And they do the thing where they make them vomit. I now have
Yeah.
a kit to do this at home.
Oh, good.
It turns out that a certain number of cc's, I can't remember exactly what it is, but you use a syringe of like 40 cc's of hydrogen peroxide will make most dogs, is an emetic, makes most dogs vomit immediately. And then you feed them activated charcoal to soak it up. But we went through this whole thing, cost a fortune.
Oh my
James
God.
Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy, his dog just ate a bunch of edibles that someone had left at his house.
Oh,
And they had this big panic, and the vet immediately said, "Do you have marijuana in the house?" And he's like, "No, I don't have any." And she's like, "Well, I've seen this before, and it looks just like that." And so he had to call around and found out like an assistant had left a bunch of edibles there, and luckily they figured it out, and the dog is fine. But
Oh my
don't leave your
gosh.
edibles around, you guys.
No, your dogs will get to them.
Yeah.
Well, last week when we recorded, we talked about our trip to New Zealand. And Rebecca, you've been to New Zealand before.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait. The things
Totally
came back.
remembered what I wanted to open
Okay,
with.
there you go. Oh, I knew
it just
it
like
would
a
come back.
shock from the sky.
Terrifying.
I apologize.
It's too
I hope
early in the
everyone's-
morning for that.
John Ronson,
Yes.
your friend,
And yours.
my acquaintance. He's one. I love him. I'm a huge fan of his.
From
And I
This
hope,
American Life. And
Yes.
the
definitely a
psychopath
filmmaker. Yeah.
test and the
Yes.
public shaming book. I can't remember what that one's called.
So you've been shamed?
And he did a wonderful doc called Stanley Kubrick's Boxes.
Yes. Yep.
He's amazing, and I'm a huge fan of his. And he's got an amazing interview on the Amy Schumer show.
Oh,
You've got to see it.
he has not informed me of this.
Amy Schumer had him on to talk about the psychopath test.
Oh.
And it is fantastic because when you listen to it, when you just read his writing and you hear him on the radio, you simply think of him as a kind of a sweetly intelligent neurotic. And of course he's more than that. And Amy Schumer is also so smart and funny and great. She's super engaging in this interview, and it's really great to watch the two of them together because it's totally worlds colliding.
Yeah.
And it's worth seeing.
Okay. I will check that out.
Can you explain what the psychopath test is?
The Psychopath Test is a book that Ronson wrote a few years ago, and it's about examining what psychopaths are in our culture. There is a test that one can take, a bunch of questions that can help identify a psychopath. He examines the idea that psychopaths frequently make it into senior positions of management in corporations. He interviews some genuine diagnosed psychopaths in prison, murderers, other people like that.
He also talks about the problems involved in the test for psychopaths, which is that, one case that he goes into detail on is a guy who says that he lied about being a psychopath in order to go to a psychiatric facility instead of to prison after he beat the crap out of someone.
Right.
And once he got to the psychiatric institution, he realized, oh, this is way worse. I want out. I'm not a psychopath. And the psychiatrists there were like, that's exactly what a psychopath would say. And he's like, well, how? And so, John talks to this guy, and like, it's really unclear whether he is a psychopath or not, because it is the sort of thing a psychopath would say. So it's really difficult to actually diagnose a psychopath.
It really is. Many of us have probably met some. I myself have had personal experience with at least 2 that are, I'm sorry, totally clearly psychopaths.
And difference between psychopath and sociopath.
Which I can
Little
never
to none.
remember.
Little,
to
very,
none.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for remembering.
No problem.
Because I totally didn't.
Yeah.
Psychopath just sounds scarier.
Yeah, a little bit, because it's got the word psycho in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the idea is it's somebody who lacks empathetic emotional response. Thus, it's also difficult to delineate sometimes between a psychopath and a narcissist.
Yeah.
Although you know about the narcissist test, right?
No.
So there's a comprehensive
Oh, I do know this.
39
Yes.
question test, but they reduced it to a single question, and that question is, are you a narcissist?
Yes.
So the answer is, if someone self-identifies, even jokingly to you, as a narcissist,
They're probably
Probably
a
a
narcissist.
probably
Narcissist.
the 2 people I've met that did, total narcissists.
Wow.
Like one guy was a movie star I met, I had dinner with him, and his face was a mask, a constant barometer of the level of interest you held for him. Like, he'd be like this at the beginning of your story, and then he'd say, and there was no drop off. It'd be like a cliff. He's like,
Right.
yeah, I'm no longer interested in this story. And you'd like wrap it up and just like turn to your left.
Wow.
Aw.
Okay, but
Social
wait, I'm
interactions.
sorry.
No.
Now, let's get back on track.
New Zealand.
Yeah, so we talked about New Zealand. And then also, we ended last week with you embarking on your Strandbeest build at the Exploratorium. Replica, had you seen this?
I have seen it. Yeah, it looked amazing.
It was such an ass kicker.
Yeah. Now, there's going to be a full video about this whole project and the whole build, but how did you come out at the end of it?
I came out victorious by the seat of my pants, which turns out to be my brand. Just like I didn't plan it that way. So I had the Strandbeest that I built was with 12 legs, so 6 pairs of legs. Each leg has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 spars. Each leg has 13 spars. Every spar has bushings at the end.
What's a spar? What's a bushing?
A spar is a length of metal. A
Okay.
bushing is a cut at length of tube at the end of that metal that helps you join the spars together with bolts.
Love it. Okay.
So we had pre-welded most of the spars and bushings here in the shop. My shop assistant, Aaron, had done hours and hours of welding so that when I got there, I thought, oh, I'm just assembling this. Instead, it was a 3-day grind of trying to figure out why it didn't work. Ultimately, there was a lovely man named Ken, whose last name I cannot remember, an Asian man who had very specific ideas about a piece of the geometry that I got wrong. In fact, what I got wrong was clear to him because my main engineering drawing was part of the press release for the Strandbeest.
Oh, and he'd seen
And
the
I
picture.
was missing the one measurement.
Wow.
So I'd heard him talking about it, and I thought, I don't see that what he's saying makes a difference in what I'm doing.
Which is
Really,
tough in the moment.
It is.
Yeah.
I also didn't want, look, I built this thing out in front of a crowd. Nobody likes to work while other people are watching you. And I'm hearing people comment on what I'm doing, and I'm trying to filter it out because I just want to problem solve. And if I'm flailing, that's part of the brand too. That's part of what's happening. But I go home and I'm thinking, could he be right? Could he be right? Could there be something to the way this geometry works? And I went to sleep at 4 a.m, of course. I wake up and I'm like, all I need to do is check the original drawing. And I checked the original Strandbeest drawing, and sure enough, I've missed this one little measurement that changed the whole spine geometry of the beast.
God.
I showed up on Thursday morning. We talked about what I had to do. I was able to change the geometry of the central spine.
That's the difficult part. Acknowledging and recognizing that missing measurement is one thing, but if there was no way to change it, at least not in a day's time, I mean, one possibility would have been to take a lot of it apart.
And I was prepared to do that. So I was up from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. that morning, running through various ways to change the geometry. And they got, as usually happens in my head, they went from very complicated and very complicated and fancy to simple and dumb. And simple and dumb won the day.
As it usually does in engineering.
As soon as I changed this geometry, the whole thing just started moving beautifully.
Nice.
I didn't think it could hold my weight, so I put a chariot behind it so I could so I could drive it. And then at the appearance at the Exploratorium that night, Thursday night, I got up on it, which apparently scared the crap out of everybody.
You could have been impaled.
I could have. And
What a way to go, though. On your
Impaled by
tombstone,
Strandbeest.
impaled
Really,
on his own strong beast.
Even my mom would be proud, I think.
Yeah.
And it worked. I was able to actually pedal my beast while riding on top of it, which was totally a thrilling way to go.
Very satisfying.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that was a really, really fun build. And I had this moment where Joey Famelli from Tested, turns to me as we're wrapping up on Thursday afternoon before the appearance, and he goes, "It's great that it ended up working." Like, he's genuinely thrilled. And I was like, "Why is this familiar?" "Oh, because that was my Mythbusters crew all the time." "Hey, it's great that it eventually worked." That's a very familiar your noise to me.
And from a production standpoint, it's like, oh, we need the story needs a happy ending or needs something satisfying.
Yeah, or at least Adam getting impaled on a string.
Well, and so, what's funny is that I'm sure you were wondering and worrying slightly. It's like, well, if this doesn't work, how do we wrap this up in a way that's narratively interesting?
Yeah.
You're thinking like a producer. The only difference between that and Mythbusters is that my producer, Steve, who's known me longer than you have, would have come up and be like, mate, how are we going to get out of this if you can't make it work? It's going to be a dog's breakfast. I know, it's a terrible Australian accent. I apologize.
No, it's perfect. I was transported. The thing with Mythbusters, the difference, though, would be like if something really goes wrong, you shelf it, right? I mean...
we have done that. Yeah.
Because you're not doing it in front of a crowd of people.
It's true. So on Mythbusters, if we had something go seriously wrong, like bamboo growing through a person as a torture method, that took us a year to get it right.
Well, yeah, bamboo takes a while to grow.
It takes a while to grow, and we figured out so many different ways to kill bamboo. We built greenhouses. There was 3 greenhouses in order to get this to work. So yeah, we would have shelved it and just gone back to it, added another production day.
Yeah. We weren't going to get another 3 days at the Exploratorium to build this thing.
No, and it was really fun to have people watch. And
it was a good crowd. A lot of people made it out just for that. Had heard about it on the podcast and either were in town or like I think someone flew in from Dallas. There were a couple of overseas people who spent the day and they were on vacation for a week in San Francisco and they spent one of their days here watching and building.
That's far out.
That is cool. And it's good for the Exploratorium too.
Totally.
Driving traffic to an awesome place.
I love the Exploratorium. I mean, I love it specifically because that's why it was the only place to do something like that, because the exhibits at the Exploratorium, separate from every other science museum, show the work of their creators in the exhibits. And I mean, they're not polished. They're hand-hewn and clearly loved, and they have the patina of thousands of booger-filled children's hands on them.
Mm-hmm.
That took a turn. I was with you, and then...
Can you imagine the antibacterial wipe cost at the Exploratorium? The disease vector of things to touch.
When I was
you build up an immunity. The staff there must build up an immunity to every child disease.
When I was flying back from Minneapolis, I had just been to a con, and so I was really worried that I was going to get sick. I usually do, but I was thinking like, okay, I've done it. I've been washing my hands. I've been feeling pretty good about this. And we're sitting on the plane, and the pilot comes down the aisle and starts shaking hands with every single person.
Great.
Like this is just a thing he has decided to do as like customer service, and he's getting closer. And I turn to the woman next to me, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. And she's like, me neither.
Like,
but what do we
Orthodox
do?
Jews.
It's a very Larry David moment.
Right. And what did I do? I shook that man's hand. Why? Because social convention.
Social pressure.
And that's when he delivered chicken wings to everybody.
Right. It was, I ended up not getting sick remarkably, but I sat there for the rest of the flight like this, just with my hand away from my face.
Wow. When I do meet and greets, I've mentioned this on the podcast before. The whole trick is shake hands with your right hand, touch your face with your left. Just don't ever.
Yeah.
I've
internalized that.
Just don't touch your face.
You got to try to not touch your face.
Yeah.
That's awful.
Studies have shown. Yeah.
You're like rubbing it on a couch by the end of the day.
Like a dog.
Yes, exactly. I wish I had opposable thumbs. It's when I used to play serious pool. I had this thing. I never held the drink in my left hand because that's the bridge hand, and I didn't want to get it wet.
Oh.
And I still do that. Like around a pool table, it feels wrong to me to touch my drink with my left hand, only with the right.
Weird.
Yeah.
I mean, can't you just wipe your hand on your jeans?
Once you get the no.
Okay.
No, you don't.
Well, that's the difference between a serious pool player and a pool player who only gets good after one beer.
This is my mom says she speaks fluent French after 2 glasses of wine. Same type of skill curve.
Yeah, exactly.
How big was that Skeptic-Con at Minneapolis?
Well, the overall con is called Convergence, and that's like I think they're up to maybe 8,000 people.
Oh, that's a good number.
So, wait, no, that's way too many. That's way too many. 8, no, it must be like 5. Probably more like 5.
That's a good number for a convention.
It's great. It's been great for us. We've been doing it for about a decade, and because it's a larger con, we are able to find a lot of new people who have never heard of us, who just showed up for like a Star Trek panel, and then they wandered into our global warming panel with a bunch of awesome women on stage, and were like, oh, this is great. Where has this been all my life?
I mean,
So-
we talk a lot on the podcast about wanting to visit makerspaces, big and small, from giant workshops to garages. And I think the same applies to conventions. Like there's so many conventions out there, gatherings that are, from 50 people to 200 people to even it's less than 1,000, fewer than 1,000 people that are really interesting that most people don't cover and media doesn't cover.
Well,
And
I think
that-
it's also one of those secondary aspects of the web making the world a little smaller, because not only does the internet allow people to find communities, but it allows them to gather those communities on short notice sometimes and share their enthusiasms in one place.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about things like Convergence or Dragon Con, stuff like that, where you have these individual tracks where if you're not interested in Star Wars, that's okay. There's 1,000 other different, you can go to the Pokemon track or to the science track or whatever.
So what kind of, I have a reasonable idea of the kind of guests you would have at Skepticon. I don't mean to say that I'm guessing right off the bat, but do you ever bring like a spy in the House of Love into the thing, like a pickup artist to come give a talk?
Unnecessary. Unnecessary, because they generally have a panel going on down the hallway. So
It's like DEF CON and the one journalist at DEF CON has to be outed.
right. That would be hilarious. And maybe when we branch off on our own, we'll do that. We'll have like one.
Bring a brave soul in
Yeah.
to subject.
They're generally terrified of us.
I would totally imagine.
So it might be difficult to find somebody willing.
But there's a way we can mend these gulfs.
That's true. I'm fine with the golf, actually. It's fine. You guys go on. I don't need to be negged at the bar. It's fine.
I was negged recently.
Were you?
I was.
Did it work?
Briefly.
Oh.
Sure. I was meeting somebody who felt the need to tell me within 2 minutes of meeting me that they really liked the stuff I was doing on Tested, especially that it was what I was concentrating on, because Mythbusters was, let's face it, entertainment.
Oh. mhm.
Wow.
And they felt the need to
Wow.
say that twice within the first 3 minutes.
Wow. And did you feel yourself like needing to like somehow becoming closer to this person, respecting them more because they've put you down a little bit?
Well, sure, in my Zelig-like way.
Yeah.
It's like, and yet when they said it again, I tend to love to unpack the motivation. Like, oh, you said it
Right.
twice. That means you really thought about saying this to me.
Yeah.
You wanted to get this across to me. So it's important to you to have, okay, cool. That tells me a lot about you.
And I think you're right. I think that was like textbook negging.
Right. It's
Yeah.
textbook negging.
Yeah.
And I've run into this with certain kinds of dudes. They don't like the fact of my notoriety combined with clearly the lack of education or skill I
Oh.
have at any specific thing.
Oh, honey.
Given that they've
If I had a nickel, if I had a nickel for every dude who has been like, she doesn't even have a science degree, you guys. Don't listen to her.
Oh man,
You know,
right.
yeah.
So I've experienced in one microcosm what you get constantly.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is I have another example of this, which is when I come out of the scanner at the airport. This one,
Yeah, we all know.
Yeah.
yeah. When I come out of that scanner,
The international
by
sign
the way, I
for
do this.
yeah, civil rights. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It turns out like something like half of people do that.
I hope so.
And you walk out, and no matter how gingerly you step out, the guy at the end of the velvet robe goes, "Stop right there."
Yeah, you're right.
Right? And that's the moment at which I feel violated. That's the moment in which I feel like, fuck, excuse me, but I don't like how that feels. And then I realize, oh, that's how all minorities feel all the time. Women, people of color, everybody. I'm just
Yeah.
getting this one taste of it as a white dude, and it's driving me crazy.
Now,
What
it's like-
crazy privilege that I only have to experience this at this one stupid location.
If you're a white person and you heard that story and you're like, yeah, like me, like, yeah, that I hate that. Now you know what a microaggression is.
Right. And imagine, yeah, exactly. That's a microaggression right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. What were you talking
I
about?
don't know. I was talking about, I was talking about small conventions also.
Small convention.
Oh, right.
Because this past weekend I was also at a small convention.
A very
Oh.
small
Yes,
convention.
there was the Replica Prop Forum's annual gathering of their community in the California area at our friend Frank Ippolito's shop.
I wished I could have gone.
Yeah. So this is to set up the stage. About 50 people showed up from this, this online community of people who build props and costumes and even replica cars, and they brought their projects to have on display, and it was just like a full day long party where people showed off new projects or shared information about their projects and met each other in person for the first time.
They
That's
also
awesome.
there's some secret projects too that people bring up there that
Secret
aren't
projects?
necessarily for public consumption.
Yeah, some of them don't have actual threads, and actually some of them are like not even on the RPF. They're like Yahoo groups. I love. There's one
it's
guy.
like a spin-off, like members of the RPF have like gone
Yes.
elsewhere.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
there are the RPF is the largest, but there's like Prop Summit, there's a Ghostbusters Forum, R2D2
Right.
Builders Club, BB-8,
Yep.
C3PO.
And Yahoo groups are like one of those original ones. There's a guy
Yeah.
there who's in the Lost in Space group, and he
That's
made
probably been going since 1974.
and he and like 20 other people have made replica analog computers, the light up computers
Oh.
from Lost in Space,
Wow.
which turns out is the same model computer that was used as the Bat computer in the 1966 Batman.
Right, yeah, it's a rentable prop, right?
Yeah.
Or when that
that's awesome.
computer company went out of business, all the prop companies bought that computer up
Right.
and then put in better light bulbs.
Amazing.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
So stuff like that. There are a bunch of great cars out there. A lot of-
Did the Matmobile show up?
no,
He's
no,
not able to drive it yet?
no. There was an Ecto One, one of
Okay.
a great original Ecto One, not 1A, a DeLorean.
Okay, let's back up.
Yeah, one A is the it's,
This is what I love about prop collecting.
is Ghostbusters 2, and
What are
Sean-
the key differences between the one and the one?
externally, it's like one A has the scrolling text. That's probably the most identical key difference.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they got a little more flashy.
They got the
Right.
Jenny Holzer add-on.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the guy who built that one, had been building it for 20 years, Sean Bishop, he had talked about like 20 years ago, which again, that's in the 90s, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Jesus, 90s was 20 years
I
ago?
know.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
Mid to late 90s were 20
Right.
years ago, you guys.
The Rock
God, there's-
was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we're all old. Hey, kids
Yeah.
on the internet. We're elderly.
Yeah. It's amazing. Like, what did you were building replica props back then?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
And the reference materials were VHS screenshots.
Oh, yeah.
And if you were lucky enough to go on set and take photos or like a studio tour, that was it.
When I built my first Blade Runner blaster, I sold it on the web. I sold 5 of them, and I've met 2 of the people that
my
bought
God.
my original kit.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the RPF for. Is it? Wait, does
I know.
F stand for forum?
It does.
Yeah.
It's like
Okay.
ATM.
Okay. I love the RPF. I learned about it 2 years ago when for Dragon Con, I wanted to go as Star-Lord and I wanted to make a helmet.
Yeah.
And so I Googled around and I found RPF and learned all about Pepakora.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so I made it out of foam.
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, and like the thread was amazing because they had photos from every angle, screenshots. And like the movie had just come out.
This
So
usually
it was great.
some of the most vigorous research happens between the first trailer
Right.
and the film coming out because
Yeah.
a lot of RPFers set as their goal the movie premiere to have a complete costume.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's whole threads on how to buy the toy Star-Lord guns and paint them. in
Yeah,
that
I did
beautiful
that.
Grady.
I went to Target. I found the guns. I painted them black and gray. They look awesome. Like I love them.
I also feel like ahead of the movie's release, because once the movie's out there, like the amount of information just explodes exponentially.
Yeah.
Right. So the hunt is maybe more fun
Yeah.
before the movie comes out because only a known quantity of like the official press images
Yeah.
or the release shots. And so it feels like you can complete everything that's available. to
But it's
contribute.
also there's a deep pleasure to finding information in other, like when we were doing research on. I mean, I remember on one of my props was only on a German DVD. A German release of the DVD had extra materials that showed the prop behind the scenes
Yeah.
being fitted by an effects guy. So I bought the German DVD.
Right. Well, yeah. In a way, it is about. It's as much about paying an homage to this character you like or think you're going to like when the movie comes out as it is that hunt. And I think that what people do is kind of recreating what you went through, in the 90s, like when you would need to get this VHS or like a studio tour or something before the movie comes out. Like that's the world you're in where you're hunting for every detail.
Well, and specifically that idea of putting yourself into this character. You like, I'm going to give a plug. My TED Talk goes public on Friday,
Yes.
on July 15th, which is my birthday, by the way.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. I'm turning a totally nondescript age, 49. Yeah. Nah, it's not much going on there.
Nah, just skip it.
Is it prime?
No, it's not prime, but it's a square.
It is a square?
7 times 7 is 49.
Yeah.
There you go. Right. It's not prime
So
at
does
all.
that.
I can't believe I even thought for a second it was prime. What an idiot.
It's a square of a prime.
I'm old now. But my TED Talk is all about that. And it's really specifically about what it means, what's going on when you put on a costume, what that feels like. Because for me, it's a very clearly very powerful driving, force and
Yeah, you're kind of into it.
I'm
yeah,
a little bit into
it. A little bit.
We've made a comprehensive list now of the costumes in my shop, and we're working through archiving them, serial numbering everything. We'll do a piece on this on Tested, but I think the number is close to 70 complete costumes.
Wow. God. And that's just complete. That's not even like
That's not
a
even
random
parts.
head here.
Right,
and
no.
a
Yeah,
gun
there's
there.
all sorts of helmets that aren't part of costumes here.
Right.
But yeah, it's a 70 complete, full.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's a lot. Is there anything else?
Well,
Becca, do you have anything to talk about that's coming up in the next couple of weeks?
Oh gosh. Well, there's Comic-Con
Right.
coming up.
I'm very excited.
Do we want to
for
talk about
Comic-Con.
that?
Yes, you have never been to Comic-Con.
I haven't.
Which is weird
I
because
know.
in my memory palace,
I know.
I have us hanging out there
I
at
know.
least several times.
That was my ghost. That was my spirit. But yeah, I've actually never been. I wanted to go last year because I only just moved to California, which makes it a little easier to go. And last year I got so sick at Skepticon that
Oh.
I couldn't
Wow.
crawl out of bed.
Even like 2 weeks later.
Yeah, it was bad. And, a bunch of my friends were in town and going to like Disney World or Disneyland along with it. And I'm like, I'm totally going to go. I can't. It was horrible. So I'm going to make up for it this year.
gonna
I'm
be
not going to get
awesome.
sick in the next 2 weeks. I'm
Make
very
sure you
excited.
get lots of sleep.
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
sleep. That's when I get sick, is when I don't get enough sleep.
Well, I did wake up at like 7 a.m. for this. So thanks. Thanks. Really helping out there, Adam. Couldn't do this at a normal human hour.
9 is actually
Like
late.
1 p.m. or something when a normal person wakes up.
What, you a
Jeez.
teenager?
Basically, Adam, I spent this entire week playing Pokemon. So yes.
my goodness.
Oh, right.
I was walking downtown this weekend, and you could tell the hordes of like people. Oh, is that a tour group outside the SF MoMA? Nope.
Nope.
They were just all their phones
Catching them Pokemon.
catching those Pokemon.
It's Pokemon Go, well, this week have more active users than Twitter.
Yes.
Yeah. That's like
and for
2
good
weeks.
reason because
And it's not even internationally released yet.
because Twitter is full of horrible news and racists. Pokemon is full of Charmanders. And,
I don't even know what that
and
means.
I can't think of the name of any other Pokemon.
My favorite story
Pikachus.
about Pokemon Go is the armed robber who waited in a
Yes.
field for
Oh
people
my
to come looking for Pokemon and robbed several of them.
They weren't.
that's terrifying.
There were several armed robbers, and they weren't just waiting. They dropped a lure, which is a thing you can do in the game to attract more Pokemon to you. But they used it to attract more Pokemon players who saw the lure and came to get the Pokemon.
no.
Those guys deserve to take those phones. Like that was a brilliant scheme. And they should get some sort of scholarship or something. Like get these guys off the street.
Scholarship to the School of Hard Knocks, clearly.
Something. Like
Wow.
they should not be in prison. They should be like there's some sort of rehabilitation program that can make good use
Look,
of
if
these
they're
guys.
really clever, I know the NSA has turned a bunch of gray hat hackers into
Yeah.
assets.
There you go. Something. Anything.
And Rebecca, when you've collected all of the Pokemon, bird watching will be waiting.
Oh dear.
What?
No.
Bird watching will be waiting.
What's bird watching?
Unless
the
actual-
activity?
Actual
The bird watching will be waiting for you with open arms.
you-
It's an augmented reality game where you go into the forest and
That's
look
what
for a
pickup
bird.
artists call their hobby.
Was that your Australian accent
Oh
again?
no! And on that note, I think that's a good.
No, we can't end there. Really?
Yeah, on
Bird-
your yeah, it's a
That's a terrible place to end. I'm sorry.
Are we really ending there?
I
we
think
we can.
have
Yeah, I
to.
think you.
No,
I think we have
that's
to.
it.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
We'll be back next week.
Is there anything important going on this week?
Yes. So we have a cool costume build, helmet build with a guy named Evil Ted Smith. He has a great YouTube channel. He worked with Frank building these helmets as part of the costume Frank made for E3. So we have a how-to
Beautiful
going out with him. And I believe, if the editing goes right, we'll have our visit to the Stanley Kubrick exhibit, the full tour that we got. Adam, you going through that exhibit?
Yes, Stanley Kubrick exhibit is at the Jewish Contemporary Museum in San Francisco from now through
October 30th. Contemporary Jewish Museum.
Contemporary Jewish Museum.
Yes. Also, got one final shout out. One of our readers designed this great poster of Apollo 11 artifacts. And it's on Kickstarter right now. Rob is his name. I'm going to put a link in the description if you want to check it out. I think if you want to get in on that poster run, you have a few days left.
I'm in on it. It's like totally wonderful, obsessive dive into Apollo hardware.
Nice.
Yeah.
Goodness.
All right. We'll see you next week. Thanks, Rebecca, for joining us.
Thank you for having
Rebecca.
me.
It's lovely to have you. Not the last time. You're going to be on again soon.
Yes.
Oh, I can't wait.
Good.
All right. Bye. Hey, I want to thank the other sponsor of this week's episode of Still Untitled, and that's Tunnel Bear. Tunnel Bear is a simple VPN app that makes it easy to browse privately and enjoy a more open internet. Just choose a country in the app, turn Tunnel Bear on, and watch your bear tunnel across and make a new internet connection to a secured location. When the app is on, your internet connection is encrypted and your online activity is kept private from your ISP, advertisers, hackers, and other snoops. Most importantly, your user activity is never logged. The Bears have apps for all your desktop and mobile devices, plus a sleek Chrome extension. So try Tunnel Bear with 500 megabytes free and no credit card required. Just go to tunnelbear.com/untitled. We'll see you next time.